It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesday. And this Wellness Wednesday, I'm talking about, AI, the internet, and boundaries. And this, I thought quite a bit about how to approach this because this is an area of ethics that is developing. And the big problem is that there's no agreed upon standards. Accountability means something different to everybody. Privacy means something different to everyone. Disclosure means something different to everybody. And there's a lot of bad blood out there simply because different people have different boundaries, and society, quite frankly, is not good at teaching us how to respect other people's boundaries. There's a lot of talk about freedom. There's a lot of talk about rights, but they tend to be my freedom, my rights, not how to balance your freedom and your rights with the rights and freedoms of other people, right? And I'm a big believer in my rights end where another person's begin. And what that means is that if I think my right to do something violates another person's right to something else, well, there's some problem with that logic there. True rights don't just straight up infringe on another person's rights and freedoms. And then there, on top of that, there is the thorny subject of dignity. And for me, the way I navigate it, and this is obviously not the only way to do it. It's what works for me. It's what allows me to sleep at night, is that, dignity is not comfort. They're different things, Some people, because they don't understand dignity. They don't understand the concept of it, that, people deserve to be treated like people. They don't even treat themselves like a person. And if somebody doesn't understand the concept of dignity, they can't extend it to anybody else. And, one of the things I've learned over the last year is that I've learned to avoid, obviously, I have clients that work on some of this stuff, but from a friend, like getting close to people, anybody with low self-esteem, anybody who can't, honestly say they like themselves, not that they think they're perfect, but that self-worth and self-concept and self-esteem are real, and that they're not just, awarded by others. Not my kind of person, because those are the people who will flip and nothing stays permanent. Nothing stays, like, I'm one of those sorts of people that if I feel like I know someone reasonably well and somebody tells me something about them that is like totally out of character, I'll be like, nah, until I see evidence otherwise. And sometimes there is. But the other thing is, I don't expect people to be perfect, nor do I expect people to do things the same way I do. And that's where perspective taking comes into this. There are some things that are just wrong. And then there are some things that are different but not wrong. And it's very important to recognize, I believe, that there can be multiple right ways to do things. And then it comes down to, okay, how much is this respecting other people's ability to kind of do stuff? If somebody can handle no discomfort or no more than a mild discomfort, well, that's obviously going to mean that everybody around them has to be extremely uncomfortable about certain things so that they can function. And that's not fair to the people around us. We have to be prepared to do things that are somewhat uncomfortable, but when, you know, it's going on for a prolonged period of time, or somebody doesn't care or can't absorb why something is extremely difficult, or something puts you in a really bad spot, that's a sign that there is a problem. So with that, you know, almost 6-minute preamble, because people love to jump to conclusions about stuff, and they love to derail on one little sentence in a half-hour video, and that personally just, I need to start going, nope, that is not going to get my attention, because listening comprehension, it is a thing, really. But okay, so let's do help support this channel and get into the IS stuff. Help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. You will see on my coffee that my next kind of goal is a new pair of headphones. The charging port on these suckers is starting to get loose. So, you know, while I'm wearing it, I hear the Windows connect, Windows disconnect, Windows connect sound. And, you know, that means that once that crap starts to break, it's going to continue to break. So, and I can't believe how bloody expensive a decent pair of headphones is. But they are. So that's the next goal there. I'm experimenting with this, just to see if it works better, if it doesn't work as well. People get really resentful when you have a community that, you know, I'm fortunate that I have a community that helps me out with this stuff. And people get really, really vengeful and really jealous about that stuff, like envious. And my attitude is that kind of stuff doesn't happen just on its own. That comes from, you know, because I am not cute, I am not sexy. The way I did it is building trust with people and having a track record of doing what I say and following through. And when I don't, I say why. And that is another thing that gets people enraged at me. And through one of those, someone getting raged at me, you know, it's always amazing to me how different public versus private is, and how hypocritical people tend to be. Not just some people. I think this is, we all have to constantly defend against hypocrisy on this particular thing. Because when we feel like our privacy is invaded, we feel that acutely. But when we accidentally or on purpose invade another person's privacy, we don't feel that vulnerability. And it takes a certain amount of maturity to connect to the idea that, you know, okay, I don't like feeling like my privacy is invaded, so I can understand why somebody would be upset when they felt that, you know, their privacy invaded or trust was betrayed. But that doesn't tend to be how most people do it. It's not, well, I can relate to that feeling. It becomes this fight over what's private versus what's public versus whether you had the right to do that, or I had good reasons and you didn't. And that really does skip the step of understanding how the person feels. You don't have to agree that their threshold is something you understand. You know, I don't consider an invite-only Discord server, for instance, to be public. It is a small group private gathering. And saying something there is different than saying something where it's totally searchable and everyone can find it. Other people think everything but like a one-on-one private conversation is public. And nobody's right, nobody's wrong there. It really does come down to intents and really listening in conversations. Like if you're mad at someone for, making something public. Oh, first of all, some things shouldn't stay private. Bad behavior, you can't necessarily expect that to stay private. And it's amazing how the people who are most, that's a violation, that's private, they're the ones that dump chat logs, in my experience. There is this ownership of those logs. And this is something that is a uniquely online thing. Obviously, there were letters before, but in the age of the internet and everybody having video and everybody having phones, this idea that conversations can be dumped online, often out of context, is this thing that we have to deal with now. And I personally am not a fan of, because I've seen it go wrong so many times, that somebody dumps a conversation and they think it proves what they're trying to say, and it may not to a third party. There's rarely perfect evidence. And if you make any mistakes yourself, once you start dumping that stuff, then you're on the hook for that. I find it often does more harm than good. Furthermore, if you're not careful when you're dumping those chat logs or recordings or whatever, and you have another person who's referenced, and so their name is now out there and possibly searchable online. Well, now you didn't just violate the privacy and, the idea that this is a private conversation of the person you're really, really, really mad at. Now you're dragging in third parties who are not going to be terribly pleased with you. And this gets extra thorny when we're talking about AI now and what you feed an AI. Because people think that when they're chatting with a bot, it's not a real person. And so anything they say, nobody's going to know. And that's not necessarily true. I did some research into this, and conversations are kept for things like training purposes. Companies like Samsung have banned ChatGPT for work-related things because they don't want, proprietary information going to OpenAI. And that, when even a tech company is concerned about privacy with this stuff, that to me makes me go, whoop, all right, I gotta be careful here. My rule, and again, I am not saying this is where everybody lands. This is where I come down. And again, this isn't right or wrong. This is just where I'm comfortable. My rule is that I have the choice to divulge my details, my story, my perspective. I can share that anywhere I want. The minute you start involving other people, then their boundaries matter. And I personally don't care if people do this all the time. They just do these like passive aggressive things. Oh, this person harmed me and she's so cruel. And I had no choice. I had to do all these things because she's just so deliberately mean. As long as they don't name me, I don't give a fuck. That's their story. Only they can know whether they really believe it or not. But nobody's gonna Google search me and find that shit. So I don't care. That's their story. They can be the hero of it. They can be the victim of it. They can be the villain of it. I don't give a fuck. You name me and start spreading it places? Well, then that matters. Because unfortunately, on the internet, people fall for shit. I've fallen, first off. You know, I've seen things, and I mean, I tend to err on the side of that's bullshit, because there are two sides to the story, and I am immediately suspicious of someone who dumps a large amount of content, because I have found in many circumstances, they are relying on people not reading it. They are relying on people going, oh, wow, that's a lot of evidence. What they're saying must be true. And I mean, I've gone through 200-page dumps of private conversations, and often they don't prove very much. And the impression I am left with is that this isn't really about truth-telling. This is a humiliation exercise, dumping vulnerable moments and stuff that was clearly never meant for public consumption. People don't speak as carefully when they think a conversation is private as they do in public. And, you know, what I end up seeing is the thing that somebody is guilty of more than anything is maybe being a little needy and trusting someone who ultimately took everything and shoved it on the internet with the intense purpose of making someone look guilty. And I don't find it compelling. Now, the problem is, how does somebody prove their case? How does somebody prove they're wronged? And this is the real problem. You really don't in a lot of circumstances. I mean, we live in an age where social media companies just sometimes flat out ignore law enforcement. They flat out ignore legal paperwork, or they'll stall, or, you know, so somebody puts shit about you out there, there's not much you can do. And the reality is, some people are going to believe it. And yes, that is a huge loss of control. It is incredibly unfair. It feels incredibly unfair. And it is the reality for all of us. I mean, the shit I have been getting from people lately, and, you know, they send me these emails because they saw something online. They're all loaded up and loaded for bear. And they start accusing me of shit. Instead of going, look, I saw this, can we talk about it? Swear to me you're not doing this. And you better not have done it or I'll get my lawyer. And I end up going, based on everything you know about me, does this make sense? And it tends to land in the same place again and again and again. And this may be tender because they may see yourself in this. So, you know, take what I say as an attempt to help, because that's the intention here. Letting you see how you come across to somebody who, you know, has a reasonably healthy sense of self and has done the work, right? Because I have heard from multiple people in the last couple weeks this line. It's not that I don't trust you. I just don't trust anybody. I am people. If you don't trust people, you don't trust me. And in my opinion, people who don't trust aren't trustworthy. Now, hear me out here. It's not an intent to be untrustworthy. But people who don't trust anybody in this world are prone to panic and are prone to hyperarousal, hypervigilance, and hyperreactivity. And so they will do shit that's not intending to fuck you up, but it does fuck you up. And Jesus, I mean, I've stepped on this rake so many times. And it's amazing to me how things that happen for completely different reasons in a particular period of time, people think they're related. You know, like one of the things that just made my jaw drop this week was somebody said, oh, I thought you were just clearing house with problematic friends because of the radio gig. To me, first of all, the timelines didn't line up at all. I've been doing the radio show for like at least 50 episodes a year when this shit went down. But also just, if I were somebody that did that, first of all, I'd be making a lot more money. Because part of the reason I make less money is I won't dump people I think are good people. They just have some funny opinions about things. I truly do believe in, if someone is still talking and still respecting some basic ground rules in a conversation, I'm not going to drop them. It's when they start refusing to do things that to me are requisite for a productive dialogue. Well, then I'll step away. But it really does just, like, I hit the point where that's what you think of me? Really? Like, you think I'm somebody who would do that? Well, people have fucked me over. Well, that is not my responsibility. And I am not going to eat shit because other people fucked someone over. I do not make others eat shit because of the backstabbing that has happened to me. I will go, look, this is just my policy. I know it's a pain in the ass. I, apologize every month for the screening process on Discord. On my Discord, because I know it is more than most. And people hate some of the rules we have. Like, put a little blurb explaining why you're posting a file or a link so that people know that it's not one sort of, hey, check out the indie game I'm working on, bullshit Discord viruses that Discord doesn't do enough to do. This is so egregious to some people that I've been accused of being profoundly unqualified to work with people with profound autism or some shit like that. That's not an exact quote, but I'm like, I know some profoundly autistic people. They are great with clear instructions. That's crap. But some people are so focused on my freedom online instead of the recognition that things are cracking down on the internet. Instagram just went PG-13. And anyway, that's a topic for another time, because people don't recognize that with freedom comes responsibility. And you cannot expect maximum freedom and minimum responsibility. People are not going to want to be around you, especially when you add power to the mix. And most people online feel themselves like this powerful little nothing who can't do, they can say anything they want and put any shitty comment they want, and it doesn't matter. And that's just not true. Every content creator I know, when they look at someone who needs to find their hinge badly online, it's like, well, that person needs a hug. And even if you don't feel like you've done anything wrong, you kind of walk around disturbed that somebody got that angry about something. And it never feels good to be falsely accused of something. You get used to it, but it never feels good. And one of the things that is a rule that I've implemented for myself is the minute people make false accusations and then explain why they did it, instead of acknowledging that it was false and their explanation is why they made a mistake, it is not, try to understand. I had to accuse you of that because it's not that I don't trust you. I don't trust anyone. That is bullshit. I'm sorry for people who are offended by that, but that is bull poo poo. Okay? Male cattle poo poo. Dung. Okay? Because there's a lot of people I don't trust. There are people I do trust, but there's a lot of people I do not trust. They are precisely the people I don't make accusations of if I can help it. Precisely because if you get it wrong, they can take that and they can cry bully. Why would you give them that ammo? When you are dealing with people you don't trust, that is when you want to be very, very careful about what information you divulge and what vulnerabilities you present to them, precisely because you can't trust them. This idea that I don't trust anybody, but I'm going to send you all this shit and I'm going to tell you all these things. And that doesn't make any fucking sense. It's very common. It's very common because people are desperate, but it doesn't make any sense. And accountability is so important there. Like, if you don't trust somebody, give them as little as possible. Don't announce, I don't trust anybody. I'm going to tell you all this stuff. Promise me you won't do anything with it, okay? Okay, so you are trusting me. Which the fuck is it? Make up your mind. You can't have that both ways. Either there is trust and that's precious, or you're going to stay, I don't trust anybody because of my trauma. And if that sounded mocking, it is, because PTSD diagnosis in 2013, I had so many trust issues. I had subscriptions. They make you a shitty person. Like, they do. You have to trust somebody, and you have to recognize that sometimes people are going to betray your trust, and that is not your fault. However, there was a mistake that I made recently that it wasn't a big one, but it did make me, it was a reminder to be careful with people that I don't know that well. It involved me having a talk with someone and about a certain push. Like, don't bother that person with things right now. They're going through this medical situation. And that person thought I was mad at them. And so they fed that conversation into an LLM, ChatGPT, Gemini, something like that. And I have been sitting here ever since going, fuck. My friend's medical information just got fed to an LLM because somebody thought I was mad at them. I gotta watch what I say about other people because of my particular circumstance, because people get parasocial and people are very, don't be mad, okay? I don't know about anybody else, but I'm immediately on my guard when somebody says, don't be mad, because what'd you do? Like, no, people are allowed to be mad at me. I'm allowed to be mad at other people. Being mad is not abuse. Someone can be angry and not call you names. Someone can be angry and not falsely accuse you of shit. They're not the same thing. But we live in an age where, now, I mean, the mistake I made, and it was an innocent mistake. I didn't think people did this, but 3 times this week, different people have told me that they fed a real life conversation into an LLM, AI, to see what the LLM thought of it. And LLMs don't think. Like, this is why, and I realize that people don't understand this stuff the same way I do. I would never do that because an LLM doesn't truly understand. It doesn't conceptualize. It just predicts the next word in something. You are talking to a mirror playing Scrabble. But lesson learned. I gotta be more careful. And yeah, was it my fault? Was I ultimately the person who was, ultimately responsible for that ending up in the large language model? No. Is this something I'm gonna be much more careful with going forward? Yes. Precisely because I can't control other people. People are gonna do this. I think it is, first of all, tragic. And I see that people think, oh, it's not breaking a confidence because you're not talking to an actual person, not thinking about the secondary information that's in that chat because they're just dealing with overwhelming emotions that they want to do something because they haven't learned to sit with them. And, at the end of it, you gotta learn to trust your own counsel and not believing the very complicated ins and outs of human interaction to a machine. But more and more people do that because human interaction is hard. The thing is, this is actually a type of stress, according to data that I've been reading lately. There's certain types of stress that are good for you. Certain types of stress that are bad for you. Very high stress long-term is bad. The kind of, I'm going to get fired from my job, that kind of stuff, that is bad for you. But the stress of navigating social situations is correlated with improved, long-term cognitive levels. So this study that I found, I'll see if I can pull it up. I'm pulling this from memory. I wasn't planning to talk about this. They did a thing of stressors, the different types of stress someone has. And they found that the only group of people in this fairly large study who reported no stress, and it was small, but they were predominantly older men who weren't married, divorced, widowed, something like that. Of course, we know those men are very lonely, but they didn't have the stressors that come with navigating other people because they didn't socialize. And they found that group also showed the greatest rate of cognitive decline. Social stress keeps you sharp. And the question is, how do you, do it at a manageable pace? And that's why talking to people is important, because people are going to get things wrong. And figuring out how to manage that without it being the end of the world, without it being crushing, is a thing. Disagreements, being able to disagree respectfully, being able to disagree and even be angry while still keeping dignity for everybody. These are all learned skills. And there's no way to learn it but to learn it. And I mean, obviously, I'm at more risk of conversations being fed into LLMs because of what I do. And the hybrid of things like the Discord, the groups I run, the other stuff I do, the gaming content occasionally, that's not normally mixed with one-on-one. That's why I call my show It's Not Therapy, because it's not therapy. But I believe in it because certain things, it's more powerful to see how someone interacts with a group than just relying on the person's reporting to you, because a therapist is only as good as the information you give them. So, I stand by it, but, I am very open that what I do is unorthodox. I see results because of that social interaction component. And I can say, okay, this is what I saw. And I'm as gentle as possible about it. But I am alarmed at people who are feeding stuff into AIs that involve third parties. And I do not believe for a second these people intend to do anything wrong. And that's why I'm talking about that as something where I'm sitting here going, I know these people they were not intending to betray confidences. They were not intending to do anything bad. They thought it was private because it's a machine, but it's not. And it did feel very gut punchy to receive that news, because the only chatbots I use are the ones like the characters like friends of mine have made, and they're for entertainment purposes only. I'm not putting a bunch of personal information, and it's fun. It feels like the old text adventure games, but I don't rely on this stuff for business or life or anything like that, even though they are very good at making lists. But yeah, this is something to talk about because it's one of those situations where nobody's intending to do anything wrong. And yet some people I felt very not okay with it. Even though I knew they didn't intend to do anything wrong. It's like, well, not only is my information now in that LLM, my friend's medical information is there because I just dumped the whole chat. And I kicked myself for it. And I know I shouldn't blame myself, but I do like, okay, be even more careful, be even more on your guard. I have to watch that because hypervigilance, symptom of PTSD, right? It's this constant balance, but that's the good stress that maintains my cognitive function, because as the internet is fond of reminding me, I ain't no spring chicken anymore. And that's so stupid. I'm only 47. I'm not old, but it's this, ew, old woman, whatever, man. I'm in my crone phase. Fuck off. I'll turn you into a toad. But yeah, this is something we have to come to terms with. So for me, if in doubt, your story is your story. Don't dump entire chats into LLMs unless you're going to go through and change identifying details. And at that point, it's sort of not worth and if you think somebody's upset with you, the best thing to do is talk to them, not a bot. Really? Because nobody knows but that person how they were feeling at that moment. And frankly, chatbots should be programmed to go, I think you should talk to this person, because asking a human being to mind read is one thing. It's still not good, but at least humans have minds. A chatbot doesn't. And different people communicate very differently, especially in text. I mean, I can say something in like that whole like, fuck off, I'll turn you into a toad. You know, clearly I'm like laughing. I'm not serious. But imagine if that was just in text, it would probably read very differently. And people go, you're so different on social media than you are in your videos. Well, yes, because it's just freaking words. It's not. Of course, it's going to read differently. There's more theater of the mind. But again, I'm curious in what your boundaries are. I'm curious how you navigate this problem. Because like I said, I'm not saying my way is right. I'm just saying this is where I'm at. And I'm curious about other perspectives. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you like this content. Leave a good comment that's high quality. It's very appreciated. You're part of this process. And be well.